At every entrance to the City of London is a dragon. All but one are based on this design. This one here on Embankment is the original. From one angle, it's pretty fierce with big teeth and talons. From another, it looks almost playful, like being a dragon is a bit of a game. But what's really interesting is that these dragons hold the Shield of St. George, the symbol of the City of London. Dragons are famous for hoarding their gold, and so is the City of London. But with all these sculptures, there's one glaring question. Why are the dragons holding his shield if St. George was supposed to have killed them? The story of St. George comes from a 13th century bestseller called The Golden Legend. Set in the 3rd century, George was a Syrian migrant who finds himself in Libya after being drafted into the Roman army. He approaches a lake and he finds a girl there who's being offered as a sacrifice to the dragon who lives in the lake. Every day, the people of the nearby city would offer another child to appease it. And on this day, the lot had fallen on the daughter of the king. The dragon charged towards the girl, and George wounds it with his lance. The girl subdues it with her girdle and leads the dragon with St. George back to the city. The people of the city are horrified, they're terrified, and so St. George agrees to kill the dragon on the condition they all convert to Christianity. St. George finds his way into the City of London via the Knights Templar, whose London HQ was here at Temple Church. The Knights Templar were a military religious order established after the First Crusade to keep pilgrims safe in the Holy Lands. During the Third Crusade, when a crucial battle seemed lost, it is said that St. George appeared at the head of the army and gave the Frankish forces their victory. The Knights Templar were in the vanguard of the attack, and so their red crosses emblazoned on white tunics became synonymous with the flag of St. George that we know today. Back in London, the Knights Templar were busy amassing vast wealth. Crusading was serious business, and a network who could protect the wealthy in their pilgrimage and their wealth had the means to invest and profit from the substantial capital they received. Here, in what is arguably the world's most important financial centre, the knights bearing the cross of St. George were laying the foundations of modern banking. But the veneration of St. George in the city had a sharp tip. Long before he was the patron saint of English nationalism, St. George was the patron saint of sharing the spoils of war. In an age of warring medieval kings, the men of the free trading City of London had to make a religious claim for their stake in the plunder. Kings had the power to levy large taxes for war, and the wealthy men of the city insisted on taking their cut of the profit. So back to the dragons. In medieval times, London was nowhere near as big as it is today. It was a free city, an approximate square mile on the northern bank of the River Thames with its imposing ancient Roman wall. The City of London today is only part of central London, but back then it was London, and Westminster was considered somewhere else. That was the Grand Palace east of Windsor, where monarchs tried on their power and attempted to control London, this independent city-state. And so this boundary between Westminster and the city has always been contested, and nowhere more so than on the main route from Buckingham Palace to Guildhall, the Strand. This dragon is different. It was rejected as the design for the other boundary markers because it's too fierce, but they kept it here. The complex relationship with the monarchy is evident in this fawning monument to Queen Victoria. It's built with all the grandeur you'd expect, but above it all, on top, is the dragon. The leery design, the aggressive stance, sweeping aside the shield of St. George, guarding the gold of the city. But why is the dragon there, if St. George was supposed to have killed it? It's an interesting feature of the story of St. George that he doesn't kill the dragon. The girl at the lake subdues it, and together they lead it back to the city. It's only because of the terror of the people that St. George agrees to kill the dragon on the condition that they all convert to Christianity. We've had such a long history of imperial Christianity, crusaders in medieval and modern guise, that it's hard to imagine this story as anything other than a forced conversion by a powerful, domineering religion. But this story is set in the 3rd century, when Christianity is a marginalized religion, living in fear of the Roman Empire. In fact, the rest of the story of St. George in the Golden Legend tells of his defection from the Roman army because of imperial persecution and his eventual brutal martyrdom. So when St. George agrees to kill the dragon, if the people convert, he's giving them a choice. Either learn to live with your monster or defect from the empire. So does this dragon, leering, sweeping aside the shield of St. George, represent the choice made by the City of London? The hero who kills the dragon and stands up to fiery kings. The knight who shares the wealth and establishes the basis for modern banking is symbolized everywhere over the city, except that at its entrance, it is subdued by the dragon. Down on Embankment, the dragon was more playful, perhaps a symbol that we could learn to live with the monsters that plague us. But up here on the Strand, it is fierce. Someone has let go of the girdle. The dragon is free. And the symbol of St. George is about to be swept aside from their perch. In the ancient tussle of a city, the symbolism of St. George and the dragon characterized the struggle between the monarchy and the financial traders. At a time of overbearing kings, the city needed a symbol of resistance. But a lot has changed since then, except that is in the city. Westminster is no longer an absolutist monarchy. The demand for taxation comes from the people, not from the Queen. But here, the dragon still rears its head, hoarding its gold and screaming, "Keep out!" The question is one of justice. This vast Gothic revivalist fantasy castle is in fact the Royal Courts of Justice. It sits right here at this contested boundary with the dragon, asking the question about what economic justice means 10 years after the crash of 2008. Perhaps there is some hope in the Knights Templar. Their emblem was 2 knights riding a single horse. They had to take a vow of poverty to enter the order at the origins of banking. In that symbol, there's the idea of a community ethic of shared wealth, not the hoarding of gold. But it seems to me there's something even more profound in the story of St. George. A far cry from the English nationalists who hold up his flag. The 3rd century story is about a Syrian migrant and a vulnerable girl collaborating to tame or then kill a dragon. And it leaves us with this question: would we kill the dragon or subdue it? And do we have what it takes to do either?